welcome in everyone to an off-season predictions episode of Craze's Corner. We're going to get into predicting some of the biggest storylines heading into the off-season that are fantasy relevant. Obviously, we're going to get into three news stories first. The first news story is Eric Bieniemy has agreed to terms and is going to be returning to the Kansas City Chiefs on a one-year deal. Hopefully, he will be a head coaching candidate somewhere next year, but for this year, he will be in KC. Tackle Andrew Whitworth with the Rams is currently leaning towards retiring, but he will come to a conclusion soon. It is not set in stone. And we have none other than Davante Adams, where the GM of the Green Bay Packers has come out and said that they would like to not tag Davante Adams, as that's not something he likes doing, and he would like to extend him. We will see how this situation goes, and Davante Adams will be a player we do bring up later on in the show today, so make sure you guys stay tuned. But what do you guys think is going to happen in Green Bay? Will Rodgers leave? Will Adams leave? Will everyone stay? Will they win the Super Bowl? Let us know using the media app. The media app is a virtual press conferencing app that allows you to host your own virtual press conference from your phone. You can change your background out. It's very professional, and we want to hear from you guys on this app. You can tag us, post it to all your social media platforms. So definitely something you're going to want to check out. You can get it on the App Store and Google Play. And now let's welcome in our guests. We have Zach from Ocean State and Will from Media. Welcome, guys.
Hey, glad to be here.
Yo, what's up?
Not too much. Have you guys been? Everyone doing good? You got some
Great.
ice down there in Texas, I hear, Will.
Yeah, 1/10 of an inch, and we've been shut down for 2 days.
That's what we do every day. But let's get into some predictions here. We're going to start it off with Green Bay. We have two predictions we're going to talk about here. We start with Aaron Rodgers. For me, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to stay one more year in Green Bay. There's a couple situations around the league that might put him in a better situation, but realistically, I think him staying another year is probably the best option. But, Denver is definitely interested. There are a couple other teams around the league who've made calls. There's multiple offers on the table according to, a couple sources on Twitter. But to me, staying in Green Bay makes the most sense. They've already cleared up, I think, $14 million in cap space within the past 2 days with restructuring some context. So they're still in the negative, but they're working at it. To me, I think they want to build around Rodgers for another year. They're going to convince him to stay. What do you think, Zach? Do you think Rodgers leaves? You think he stays?
I mean, like the exciting thing would be if he went somewhere else. But what ultimately I think is going to happen, I think he stays. They run it back. They find a way to get him and Adams. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's got to be tough, right? Because when they win 13 games every year, and they're always like the favorite in the NFC late in the season, and Aaron Rodgers just keeps winning the MVP, but they just keep falling short. So I can understand if at a certain point this has to come to an end. But I think we'll probably get one more season of A-Rod.
Yeah, I agree. I think this was supposed to have been their season for the past few years here. Packers, this is their season. Aaron Rodgers is going to get it done, and they just come up short in the playoffs. But it's got to be one more year. Give him another chance. Let him try and run it back again. The defense was pretty good last year. So we'll see if they can continue to build off that momentum. And then the offense just has to show up more in the playoffs. Will, what do you think? You think Rodgers is staying?
Yeah, I think that's why he's not getting married. I think the Packers, they talk about they don't want to tag Davante. I don't think they're going to – Davante's not going to sign a long-term deal with them, knowing that Aaron's probably at least maybe one more year. I think if I'm Rodgers, I could go to Denver, but I really want to compete against KC and San Diego and emerging Bengals. Like the AFC is really competitive. And where if you look at the NFC North, Lions are the Lions. Bears and Vikings, new coaching staff, retooling. I think if he stays and they can make it all work for one more year, I think they're a 13, 14, 15 win team, home field advantage. And then they'll lose in the first round again, or after their first round, and they'll blow. And at that point, they'll blow it up. And the coaching staff, front office, everybody will be gone, and Rodgers will. I wouldn't be surprised at that point. They just let him go.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it happening if they don't win again this upcoming year and they bring some people back. That's definitely going to be a letdown. And you guys have already touched on it. Davante Adams, if Rodgers stays. If Davante Adams stays, and if Rodgers leaves, Adams leaves for sure. Whether that's with, if they tag him and trade him away or whatever. But as Will said, I don't think Davante Adams will sign a long-term deal with the Packers. I think it will be a one-year deal, whether that is the franchise tag or they go a route and they just give him a one-year deal with like a second-year player option type thing. We could see that if Rodgers comes back again next year, because as long as Rodgers is in Green Bay, I think Davante Adams will be there. I think that's one of the main things that's going to decide whether Rodgers stays is whether or not the GM promises to bring Adams back. Because if we can get Adams back, that's huge for him. Their wide receivers currently are Amari Rodgers and Randall Cobb, so they definitely need some help in that part of their offense. But I think the running back situation is good there. So if they can work it out, I think it's best for everyone that Rodgers and Adams both stay in Green Bay. Do you guys, Denver's been a team that's been floated around there. What kind of fantasy impact do you think that would have on Denver's team if Rodgers becomes a Denver Broncos, Zach?
Massive impact, right? Maybe we can finally see those wide receivers live up to the hype, or at least, be somewhat relevant for fantasy. So you got Judy, Sutton, even Tim Patrick, Noah Fant eventually has to be something. So yeah, it'd be crazy. And they talk about the backfield, Javante. Would they be a Super Bowl favorite probably from that point on?
Yeah, I mean, as long as they don't give up too much to trade for Rodgers, I definitely think that would be a good fit. I don't think it'll work. As Will said, the division is going to be extremely competitive. Why would you leave a division where you get to play the Lions and the Bears twice a year to go play Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert twice a year?
Right.
But let's switch it up and talk about a quarterback in a different division. We're going to move on to the NFC West with Russell Wilson. There have been some rumors going around. Maybe Wilson leaves this offseason. Maybe he gets traded to, say, the Eagles. Washington. Denver's also been another name that's been tossed around. To me, I think he stays. This is another situation where I think it just makes the most sense for him. And I don't think the team wants to give up. They're bringing Pete Carroll back again. And I don't think Pete Carroll's just going to want to restart over with a new quarterback. I think he's going to want to continue to build with Wilson because, he's getting up there in age as well. So I think maybe this year doesn't quite go their way. Maybe you see Pete Carroll retire next year and Russell Wilson move on. But to me, the fact that Pete Carroll's going to be back, I can't see them moving on from Wilson unless they could get a Jalen Hurts in return possibly. But I don't see that being a realistic trade because I think the Eagles should hold on to Hurts. What do you think, Zach? Do you think Wilson stays? You think he goes?
This feels so similar to Aaron Rodgers kind of thing. It's been this like bubbling kind of conflict with the quarterback and the organization. But I think the same situation. I think he stays in Seattle. I don't know what that outlook is for Seattle because I don't have too much of like a very positive look for that offense going into the season. So, you got DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett over there. So like you still have the pieces if, Russell returns, but again, like you said, I don't know what kind of trade, I don't know what his contract situation is like. So I don't know what teams would really have to give up in order to get him, and it's like, is it really worth it? He was banged up last year. I don't know if they're like, people are going to just give up the farm for Russell Wilson right now.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going anywhere. I think because you brought Pete Carroll back. You sure the heck didn't bring Pete Carroll back to transition. And I get the owner's a good owner. And so, he's letting Pete have one more shot. They do have $34 million in cap space. So they can sign some. I mean, look, the offensive line is the problem, right? So they can go get a couple good offensive linemen. And I don't think they would have brought Pete Carroll back if the owner hadn't talked with Russ and, hey, do you really want to, if we do this one more year, give us one more year. And yeah, I mean, good for Seattle. I think if they actually go out and sign the best guard on free agency and a tackle, and do they have their draft pick this year? They have their first round pick this year or no?
No, I think the Jets still have it.
Yep. Yeah, from the Jamal Adams trade.
So they better be active in free agency.
Yeah, they definitely do. They have to bring back a couple key pieces on the defense too. They definitely have to look at bringing Quandre Diggs back at safety, and they will have a couple holes to fill there at corner. So they have some money. They'll probably need to clear some more going into free agency. Russ's contract, he's due. He's got a cap hit of $37 million this upcoming season and $40 million in 2023. So if they did happen to want to, get rid of him, it's $26 million dead against the cap this season, with nothing against the cap next season. So
yeah,
it's possible, but
they'll do a voidable year. That's exactly. They'll add another year to that contract just to smooth that cap number. Because you're right. You watch them open up about another 10, 15 million in cap space. And then, you kind of, from a fantasy prospect, if they can fix that offensive line and Russ is Russ, that could be an explosive offense again. And I think Seattle's probably going to be a little bit undervalued in the drafts next year. Right. And so it could be a good play mid-draft strategy to go in there and get those Seahawks wide receivers. I'm not sure they're at first round. Maybe I don't know. I mean, we'll see. But I mean, I could see this Metcalf and them being a second round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I would be hesitant to take Metcalf in the second. I think, it's kind of around where he went this year, and he did finish, I think, top 11. I think he finished 11th in standard. But for me, I think, kind of in that third round is where I think I'd be comfortable taking him going into next season. There are some questions, but if they do address the offensive line, DK Metcalf is talented. Russell Wilson is extremely talented as well. We'll see what they do at the running back position, whether or not they bring Penny back or they go a different route. I think they will bring Penny back on, another 1 year kind of prove it deal or a 2 year prove it deal. Just to kind of prove that, these last 8 games or whatever weren't a fluke. I can't see Penny really going Cup. There's a couple other places, but I think Seattle makes the most sense for him with Carson still being a little banged up. So, I'm definitely excited about this offense as long as they do commit to Russell Wilson, which I think they did by bringing back Pete Carroll. How do you feel about DK Metcalf, Zach? Just before we move on to the next topic, do you think around that third round range is where you're going to be kind of comfortable with him?
I mean, he's tough. I mean, he was top 10. Actually, I mean, from what I'm looking at here from this standard ranking, I think he was top 10. So it's like, in theory, right, the way the wide receivers come off the board, you're probably right. That's probably exactly where he'll go. But it's tough. I don't know. DK is just one of those guys that the ability's there, the ceiling's there, but it just feels like his finishes never feel like what it's like when you have him on your team for fantasy. You never feel as like, wait, he was 10. It's like, how did that happen? So from that aspect, it's more annoying. But if you're just looking at pure like analytics, he's definitely if you can squeeze him in as your wide receiver 2, maybe if you go wide receiver super early, that's not a bad wide receiver 2 to have for sure.
If you had to rank Seattle in the West,
3,
14.
I'm going to take them over
Cardinals.
Yeah.
And
but still, that's still a rough skate, right? When you got 6 of your games are against a division that knows you well. Woo.
Yeah, the 2 Wests, they're loaded.
Yeah, they both Wests are. I'm not sure what's going to happen with San Francisco quarterback situation. We'll see about that. Not super excited about Trey Lance being their quarterback this year, so maybe they keep Jimmy. But let's move on. We're going to stay in the division, though, talking about the Cardinals quarterback, Kyler Murray. This whole story about him being disgruntled, the team not viewing him as a leader. I've never been a huge fan. Since before, Kyler Murray is not my type of guy. I would never want him to be the quarterback of my football team, and I will not be predicting him to be the quarterback of my football team. But for me, I think if there really is this leadership problem, there's only a couple teams in my mind in the league that can fix that type of thing within a starting quarterback who's already been in the league for this long. I think the Patriots would be one of those teams, but they got Mac Jones, so that really doesn't make any sense. And one of the other teams that makes some sense because they have this kind of coaching staff built to me is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Mike Tomlin can do wonders. And if they take a guy, they had problems with Big Ben earlier on in his career. So if the Cardinals are really ready to move on, I think Pittsburgh makes a lot of sense. They're in need of a quarterback. They have some offensive weapons for sure. The line is a little sketchy, but they do have some cap space in this offseason. So maybe if they can make a move for Kyler Murray that addresses their biggest need, in my opinion, which is the quarterback. I don't want to have Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins starting for my team. They got the wide receivers. They got Najee Harris there. I think that'd make for a good fantasy football offense. And like I said, I think if there really is a leadership issue, Kyler Murray, rumors he calls his girlfriend at halftime, kind of sits away from the team. That's not what you want from your starting quarterback. But, there's only a couple teams in the league who could get that out of a quarterback.
Did you say Kyler Murray or Kirk Cousins?
Oh, man.
Yeah. Leadership matters. You got to lead as a quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And something was wrong with that team. Something like Kyler Murray looked, if you had him the start of your season, you were like, oh, man, I got him. This guy's going to help carry me to a championship.
Cordell Patterson.
Right.
And things just fell off a cliff.
It'll be 2024. We're still talking about Cordell Patterson.
No.
But no, I started doing like team breakdowns, and Arizona is the first alphabetical team, I think, in order. So that's where I started. So I have been doing some research on Kyler Murray, and even with the injury last year, he still had the fourth most rushing yards. Every year, his trend is the same thing. It's actually kind of crazy if you look at it. The half point of the season, his QB rating just takes a nosedive. Whether injuries are involved with that, he's honestly only really missed time last year, as far as multiple games. But for fantasy purposes, he's still top 3 in my opinion, especially in Dynasty. That's probably bold, but I think the same thing is going to happen this year. He's just going to start off super hot again, and if he can continue throughout the season, that's another story. But I think you guys are right. If you're talking real football, obviously there's leadership issues there. I don't like my quarterback doing the whole scrubbing of the Instagram thing. I think that's super corny, and you're a professional of the utmost privilege in the NFL. You get paid to play a child sport. The last thing you really should be doing is just messing around on Instagram. So I don't like that at all. But again, fantasy perspective, the rushing upside is what keeps him in an elite tier, in my opinion. And I think with all this buzz going around and the second half slump with Arizona, Kyler Murray might actually be a pretty good value in redraft leagues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think he could be a value to pay based on all this hate that's been coming his way. I disagree with top 3 quarterback in Dynasty, but I do.
Well, he's on the Steelers. I don't think he's top 3 in Arizona.
Yeah, his age.
Steelers. That could be a discussion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and
it's just tough. If
I'm the Steelers, I'm sitting there looking. I am very close to being the seller of this division for a couple of years if I don't get a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the Steelers make sense to me.
Yeah.
To be a trade partner for Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Better than Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Look, Kyler Murray, even if he's a problem leadership-wise, it's a better PR person to bring in than Deshaun Watson.
Oh, yeah.
Pittsburgh has already dealt with the sexual assault thing for a few years, so nothing new for them. They're fine.
Right. But
they won a couple championships with
Kyler is a little bit younger than Deshaun Watson, right? So that could just kind of sway them.
It depends on what you believe with this leadership problem. If Mike Tomlin believes, we can fix this, then I think he's probably their best option. But, if this is a real problem and Mike Tomlin doesn't think he can fix it, Deshaun Watson would probably be a better fit there. So, do you think Kyler Murray ends up in Pittsburgh if he gets traded? Do you have another trade option in mind?
I mean, I guess the only thing you could wonder, so could you do a Kyler Murray for Deshaun Watson? Right? Could that solve two teams' problems at once? I don't know why Kyler Murray would want to go there.
Nope.
So I think Pittsburgh, from a fantasy perspective, God, I'd rather have him in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
If he's on my roster as a keeper, I'd much rather have him with Pittsburgh because I believe that coaching staff will get the most out of him. And if they aren't going to play, if he goes there and he's a problem, he'll be gone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Houston learned their lesson trading with the Cardinals after getting absolutely roasted for what was it? DeAndre Hopkins.
DeAndre Hopkins
gave him away for a sandwich and an old washer and dryer. Just absolutely. So, and then the other thing too, David Johnson. That was another bad trade for Houston. So.
Yeah, I don't think, Zach, do you have an ideal destination in mind or a place you think it's likely he's traded if he is, or you think he stays?
Kyler?
Yeah.
I don't think he goes anywhere. I think him and Cliff patch things up. They seem like two kind of guys cut from the similar cloth. So I think at the end of the day, they just really want to make money. They want to be flashy. Arizona, especially where they are in Scottsdale, it's a beautiful place to live. It's like one of the nicest places people go to retire. So there's really no reason for him to throw this, temper tantrum. He literally was like one day away from even being like legality even eligible for an extension. Like he didn't even give them the Super Bowl wasn't even played yet. This guy was like, give me the extension, and he's also 25 years old. That's the other thing too. You got to cut these guys some slack. I don't know too many 25. I know I at 25 would not been able to lead $1 billion franchise, being the face. There's a lot of pressure that comes with it, especially playing the quarterback position. And honestly, he's had a really good young career. So whether he goes and play baseball, that would be, I guess, the only crazy thing to happen. Other than that, I see him just playing in Arizona for the next year or two.
Yeah, I mean, if he goes and plays baseball, there goes your top 3 dynasty quarterback.
That's it.
That
done.
Would be, that would be terrible. Let's move on to the quarterback that Will did bring up, though. We're going to talk about Deshaun Watson. He will be moved this offseason as long as his legal situation is figured out. The deposition, I think they moved it back to April 1st at the latest because they didn't have the cases deposed. So where do you guys think Deshaun Watson? I think Deshaun Watson, to me, Carolina makes the most sense. They have the assets. They have the picks that they can trade away. That top 6 pick, that's a big thing for the Texans to be getting. They can build around Davis Mills. I don't know. To me, it makes the most sense. As a Panthers fan, it's something I want to see happen. I believe in Deshaun Watson. I think he would definitely elevate the offense, which was the problem. It's been our quarterback play since Cam Newton left. I don't know. To me, makes the most sense. Carolina. I want to see Deshaun Watson there. But Zach, what do you think?
I think out of all the places that he is rumored to go, whatever, and I heard the Vikings and Bucks, and then that was kind of what Fugazi. Everyone immediately thinks of the Broncos, but of honestly the places that I can visualize Deshaun Watson in the uniform playing on the team, I think it is Carolina. That'd be awesome. Maybe he can resurrect Christian McCaffrey's career. Maybe DJ Moore can not have his career waste away too. So there's a lot of benefits if Carolina does make a move for Deshaun Watson, and you guys got that crazy owner now. That is, trying to be the hot shot owner making all the moves going in. You got Matt, Rule on his kind of last leg here as far as credibility. So, you brought in the absolute superstar Ben McAdoo. So you just toss in Deshaun Watson, and I think you're looking at a pretty exciting offense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it would make a good fit, bring him back to Carolina where he went to school down there in Clemson. I think that would be a good fit, as you said, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, that kind of thing. And Matt Rule, if the Panthers don't perform well this year, he's gone. Right. So maybe he's in Fritterer's and Tepper's ear, let's go get us a starting caliber quarterback here.
Right.
So I can
You almost think this becomes like a big situation, right? Where the NFL, how do you the star player, where can you rehabilitate their image? And I think going home to Carolina is where you can rehabilitate the image. I don't think there's anywhere else in the NFL the fan base will not have an initial reaction of, "What did you do?" Because it's not like you. The problem, it'd be one thing like the Vikings. If you said, "Hey, we'll just trade you straight up for Kirk Cousins," I think the fan base would look, okay, well, sure. I mean, you take that $40 million contract, and we'll take his, and it is. But no one's going to get off with an easy trade like that. Houston's not going to give up Deshaun Watson for Kirk Cousins or a third-round pick. So the draft capital is going to go with this trade. Fans, so to me, you factor that in, and if you're the Vikings and you give up 3 first-round picks for Deshaun Watson, I'm not sure that with everything that like a Viking franchise that's in transition, I don't think they can survive that. And I'm trying to think any other team that can get through that PR of the first week, because you're going to have to bring him in. He's going to have to sit in front of the cameras, and he's going to have a press conference. I don't care what team he goes to. He's going to have to talk. So that means his court stuff's going to have to be settled, and he's going to have a press conference, and he's going to have to be coached, and he's going to have to be sorry. And so what audience does that play well with? Well, that's Carolina. I mean, you got to go home. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised the NFL intervenes here at some point and steers that trade. But I think the NFL, if they do that, they're going to have to make sure that Carolina gives up more than one pick. It's going to be.
I think it'll be at least 2 firsts plus.
It's probably 2 firsts, 2 twos, and then a conditional.
Yeah. I mean, if the last 2 Super Bowls have shown us anything, you trade for a quarterback, mm-hmm. You're now in a similar position as the 2 Super Bowl winning teams. Just got to try to line it up to where Carolina, the Super Bowl, is in Carolina.
Is in Carolina? Yeah, I think that'll be a bit before we get a Super Bowl, but
keep pounding.
We got this. I think Deshaun Watson fits, and as Will said, I think it makes sense for both parties. We have the capital we can give them the ability to build around Davis Mills, who I do believe is the future in Houston. But let's move away from the quarterbacks. We're going to get into 4 free agents that could have big fantasy football impacts. We have first one, which is probably the biggest named wide receiver on the market, Chris Godwin, the former Buccaneers wide receiver who will be looking for a new home. In my opinion, I don't think he goes back to Tampa. A team that makes a lot of sense to me is a team who just drafted a rookie wide receiver who had an amazing rookie season. He sets like some records or whatever for most receptions. I don't know. Whatever. That team, the Miami Dolphins, I think make a lot of sense with their $61 million in cap space, bring in a new weapon for Tua. I think to pair him alongside Jalen Waddle makes a lot of sense. And as I said, the cap space is there. Jalen Waddle, Chris Godwin make for good wide receivers to pair with your young quarterback, especially with the new coaching staff. You're going to want to make some changes. Wide receiver is a position of need. To me, I think it all just fits too well together that Chris Godwin would be a perfect piece to be a new addition in Miami. Zach, being the resident Miami fan, what do you think? What do you think of having him in Miami, and where do you think he will end up?
I would love to have Chris Godwin in Miami. I'm a huge Chris Godwin fan. I've kind of been since he's emerged on the scene. I was doing some breakdowns again here, but just like running some numbers, like 77% catch rate. You look at guys like Cooper Kupp, 76, Davante Adams, 73. He's an elite company, especially when it comes to PPR. Obviously, him and Tom Brady had the connection. So when you go from the GOAT to anybody else, there is going to be some sort of regression of some sort, especially if it is Tua. So I think if I'm looking at a fan perspective, I would love to have Chris Godwin in Miami for my own selfish reasons. For his fantasy value, though, if he does end up in Miami, he's for sure not going to be producing like people have been, come to expect from him. And you also got to factor in the injury too, so that's super untimely. And for him, I hope it doesn't, damage the bag too bad for him. Cause if he would have finished the season healthy, he would have been probably getting paid some serious bucks. But yeah, wherever he goes, he's still Chris Godwin. But like in an instance where you get a guy like Tua, you have to automatically just lower his ceiling,
Mhm.
just as soon as he puts that jersey on.
Yeah, I like the prediction and I like the fit for football wise in Miami. As for the fantasy aspect of it, I do think it lowers Waddle's value a little bit, as well as it brings Chris Godwin's value a little bit down from where it was last year, as they're both going to be competing for targets. The defenses will probably start shading coverage Godwin's way, so maybe that does help Waddle open up a little bit. But Godwin's still talented, so he will be able to beat those coverages. So you have to temper your expectations. I think they'd both be in that wide receiver 2 range fantasy wise. So not amazing. Not going to get that wide receiver 1 finish, but they should be solid. Will, what do you think? Do you have a prediction of where he goes?
I think the Packers go all in for next year, and they can free up a lot of cap space with restructure. And I think Godwin's team is like, hey, you're coming off an injury. Probably want to sign a 1-year deal anyway. And I think Zach's point about going from Brady, I don't think his career can afford to go to a quarterback that's not going to help him produce on a 1-year deal. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to say he's going to go to the Packers. And he's going to play opposite Davante Adams. And because if the Packers go all in, they're going to go all in. They're going to do what the Saints did. They'll put a $70 million cap hit on the following year. Mm-hmm. And, hey, we win a Super Bowl, the fans won't care.
Yeah. Right. That'd be a crazy fit. Maybe his value doesn't actually drop that much if he goes to the Packers. He'd be the wide receiver 2, but on that high-powered of an offense with a great quarterback like that, I could definitely see it working. Your point, if he can't get a team like Miami to give him a long-term deal, maybe a 1-year deal worth $10 million with the incentives makes sense for him. Come back off the injury on a team that you're going to be facing number 2 corners. You're going to be burning them all day. Absolutely lighting up corners all year. I think that'd definitely be an amazing fit. I think it'd be good for the Packers if they can clear up the space to bring Chris Godwin in tandem with Davante Adams. They'd be the best wide receiver duo in the league for sure, and it wouldn't even be close.
Oh,
that'd be crazy.
Yeah, that would be nuts.
Yeah, I think with that, Rodgers probably catapults the quarterback 1 going into next year.
Yeah, he goes out there, especially with all that oil and herbal healing he's doing.
He's got to go on that Tom Brady diet. It's what this guy needs to do. And then we'll see him playing around for another 5 or 6 years before he gets out.
See if that therapeutic vomiting pays off.
That don't even make sense.
That's horrible. That's horrible.
Horrible. That should put him down a couple notches on everybody's fantasy board for admitting to that kid. Okay.
Yeah, he's a great player, but his off the field antics don't want him on my draft board anymore. No. But let's talk about a guy who's not going to score you any fantasy points, but he will help score other players' fantasy points. The number 1 offensive tackle going into free agency, I want to talk about Terron Armstead. And I think there's probably, 25 teams who he'd be an upgrade over at left tackle. He's an amazing left tackle. Teams that have cap space to make it work, start to narrow it down. Teams that need a tackle, who have the cap space. He's only 30. So he's not quite I thought he was in his mid-30s when I was looking at this, and I was like, no, he's not. He's still 30. So we could go to a team that has, a few-year window. I think he wants to win. We just saw this team who is really good. They were in need of some offensive line help. To me, that's got to be the Cincinnati Bengals with their $54 million in cap space. They have Jonah Williams, who was serviceable. He's a good left tackle. But, if you get Terron Armstead, who's a great left tackle, you move Jonah Williams over to the right side, and then you can help fill in the interior after that. But I think he'd be a great addition to the Cincinnati Bengals. I think he helps fantasy value of wherever he goes. He will improve the fantasy value, whether it's a lot or a little bit, depending on how much of an upgrade he's going to be at the left tackle position. But I think in Cincinnati, he definitely upgrades Mixon's value, Burrow's value, especially in Dynasty. I think that's a big thing for Burrow because that is going to help protect his blind side, which will keep him upright and a less chance of re-injuring. He can't go on being the most sacked quarterback every year of his career. He will not hold up. So I think if he does go to Cincinnati because they have the cap space, that's big for Burrow in Dynasty, which is obviously in change good for Jamar Chase's Dynasty value. So for me, that's a move that makes sense. What do you think, Zach? Do you think Cincinnati's the right fit? I was debating putting Miami here as well if I didn't have them signing Godwin. You guys do need some tackle help. So what are your thoughts on Terron Armstead?
I'm selfishly again hoping we have the most cap space out of any team in the NFL at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And we have Mike McDaniel, you got a new coach. You have this awful blemish of all the Flores stuff. You have Tua, who is going to start aging before you know that rookie deal is going to be coming to an end. And he's not going to be really serviceable for what the contract situation is going to be. So this is the window of opportunity for the Dolphins to at least make that jump to an actual contending team. And this is where you do it. You get a solid Pro Bowl caliber left tackle, 30 years old. That's not terribly old. I speak from experience as someone who is 30 years old.
And
I feel like I could go out there and block JJ Watt if I had to.
Whitworth's played till he's 40, just won a Super Bowl. So, he's got a few years left in the tank for sure.
Right.
I liked that Miami needs the tackle. And, Mike McDaniel just coming from a team that had Trent Williams, who they paid a lot of money.
Right.
My biggest hesitation is the fact that Tua is a left-handed quarterback. So do you pay top money for someone who's not protecting your quarterback's blind side? To me, that was the biggest hesitation. That's why I picked Cincy. Yep. I think it would definitely be a good move for them to bring him in anyways. It's just I don't know if their front office decides that's the best way to spend money or if they want to, spend money on the weapons and then, build a decent offensive line as opposed to going for some superstars. It's a tough decision. Do you think they will, target Terron Armstead, or you think they'll go other directions with their money?
Well, there's not too much going on in free agency as far as linemen. So it's not even like there's a bunch of guys to choose from. And all of the draft picks that we've really not really wasted on linemen in these past few drafts, none of them have really come through as of anything of substance. So to have a guy like that instantly, no matter what side of the line he's blocking on, Tua would be the most sacked quarterback if you didn't have that ridiculously quick release, short pass game going on. Trust me, I watched every single game. My man is under pressure, legit every single play. And when the Dolphins just trot out some running back they found at a bus stop every single other week, the defenses are like, yeah, we don't really have to worry about the run game. So let's just blitz Tua all day and, hope he can get it to Matt Collins because Will Fuller is a loser. So it's like no matter what, Tua needs help. So I hope they just drop. You have all that money for a reason. You have you got to spend it on guys that it's not only a need, but it's available,
Yeah.
So.
I think that's definitely. What do you think, Will? Thoughts on Terron Armstead?
The Rams are over the cap right now, but I read a story how easy it is for them to actually create about 40 or 50 million in cap space. I think Whitworth retires, and honestly, if I'm Armstead, hey, there's money there. They just won the Super Bowl.
It's warm.
Warm, LA.
Right.
And you're good quarterback, good offense, good defense. That's not a place I didn't even consider. I didn't think about that because they were over the cap, but they definitely could. I think Tyler Higbee is due like $8 million or something stupid.
And then they got to re-sign Stafford.
Yeah.
Right. And so he's in the last year, going to last year's deal, but they're going to extend him now, and they'll smooth that. Right. I mean, the story I read, I think Pro Football Focus, somebody said you read it, you're like, oh yeah, it's not even hard to convert.
No, they could do it.
The signing bonus money, all that, and easily get 30, 40, 50 million under the cap.
Yeah, and that makes him going to a contending team there too.
Yeah, and with no draft picks, free agency is everything for them.
Yep.
So if Whitworth is going to retire, I would not be shocked at all.
Yeah.
The Rams, where else are they going to get a left tackle?
Makes tons of sense to go there if he's willing to take some sort of a discount to go to a contending team, because Miami and Cincinnati are going to be able to offer him a lot more money. But if he wants to go to the Super Bowl, the reigning
Right.
Super Bowl champs, that is something that they have for him. Let's move on to a couple wide receivers to finish out the show. We're going to talk about my guy, Allen Robinson, first of all. I love Allen Robinson. I'm super excited he will no longer be shadowed by Matt Nagy. He will get to go somewhere. There's a couple teams, people saying maybe he goes back to the Jags. Not loving that for his fantasy value unless Chark does leave, then maybe. I want him, maybe his fantasy value isn't going to be amazing if he goes to this team, but I think the Indianapolis Colts make a lot of sense. They have the cap space. Outside of Michael Pittman Jr., they don't really have another wide receiver. I think Allen Robinson comes in. He can be the wide receiver 1 for this team. What they do at the quarterback position, I think they should keep Wentz. Wentz wasn't terrible as everyone makes him out to be last season. He wasn't amazing. But, I didn't think, Indy fans expected him to be amazing. Apparently, the media thought Carson Wentz was just going to be an MVP when he came back to Indy. Those were never my expectations for him. I thought he was going to come in and be a serviceable quarterback that, kind of like Phillip Rivers was the year before, where the defense carried the team, Jonathan Taylor in the running game. And then, he just has to make a couple throws, be smart with the ball. He only had 7 interceptions, I think, something low. A low number like that. I can't remember exactly, but to me, I think the Colts make a lot of sense. They have $34 million in cap space, so they do have the money to make it work. Whether he signs there on a, they pay him a lot. Whether he goes there for a 1-year deal, depending on what the market is going to be for him this year. Allen Robinson to the Colts makes a lot of sense fantasy wise. He's not going to be a super pass heavy offense as Jonathan Taylor's still going to be there. But he will be the number 1 option. His fantasy value, no matter where he goes, will be higher than it was in Chicago. So, this is all good for Allen Robinson dynasty-wise because he can't get worse. Even if he, got injured and didn't play the season, he'd probably still finish higher. But what do you guys think about Allen Robinson, Zach? We'll start with you. Where do you think Allen Robinson goes?
See, I don't know at this point with Allen Robinson. As far as real life and with fantasy, I guess it really all so the fantasy aspect. I guess it all depends on the location, which I guess is kind of lazy advice, but it's really true. If he does go to a place like Indianapolis, and they most certainly are getting rid of Wentz, is apparently the rumor that's swirling around right now is that he's already gone. Which, yeah, he didn't have a terrible season last year, but he's not going to get the job done. So not to talk about Wentz too much, but I guess Indianapolis would be a good spot. You pair him up with Pittman, right? That'd be not bad. I could see him going to like a New England. New England's kind of wide receiver needy. Those picks, the free agency kind of flopped last year with Aguilar. That would be a nice, they need a nice big body for the young quarterback, Mac Jones. So wherever Allen Robinson goes, I think it's going to be like kind of him just like I know you're very high on him, and it was kind of sad to see what his career turned out to be because of the lack of quarterback throughout basically his whole career.
Yep.
So, but if he goes to like a New England or like one of these like on the fringe playoff contending teams, it'd be nice to see him play in the postseason again, because I think the last time he was there was that magical season with Blake Bortles.
Yep.
So,
yeah. But before Will can bring it up, because I know Will's thinking it, Allen Robinson to the Packers. I know it's running through your brain right now, Will.
What I'm actually thinking is the Lions.
That's a good one.
Yeah, if they want to pay him, because he's not going there if he wants to win.
I mean,
but
and the reason I'm thinking the Lions is because it's not really a stable franchise. So I think, I think this offseason, you really got to think. I think the Lions may do stuff that just surprises everybody. Like, they're under the cap, $19 million. We all know they could probably create another $15 million restructuring. If they're looking at, let's say Aaron Rodgers leaves. If you're the Lions, why not us? NFC North is wide open, and you got an emerging superstar on a rookie contract. So if you can get Allen Robinson for a good, even if it's a little bit high compared to what the Colts or somebody else was paying him, and you know how division teams are, right? You play against a guy twice a year for as many years everybody's played against Allen Robinson. You know what he can do with a good quarterback. You know what he can do with a good offensive-minded coach. So, or I think maybe the Eagles. if I'm really thinking like who may say this could be a piece
Mhm.
to help move us forward.
Yeah, the
Take that
Eagles
like
could be.
Alshon Jeffrey role.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah,
fit right in there perfectly. At the same career trajectory.
except Allen Robinson will, he will recover. Don't worry, he won't be the Alshon Jeffrey going to the Eagles to die type thing. I like the Packers. I brought them up quickly. If they don't get a Chris Godwin and they want to bring in another wide receiver, maybe
Yeah.
he's
Well, what
the
about the
option.
Titans? I mean, the Titans got a wide receiver issue now, right? I mean,
They're already paying Julio 22 and AJ Brown.
is Julio
Uh,
guaranteed?
I think so. Well, I think after a certain point he makes 22. But just to touch on the Packers real quick, he absolutely hated the fact that the Chicago Bears wouldn't let him leave. So if he can go to a team that he knows he can beat the Chicago Bears twice this season, I think that's definitely something that'll play into it. And if they can win.
Hey, let me tell you something. If I'm the Titans, I can cut Julio Jones after June 1 or designate him a June 1 cut and save 10 million in cap space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
then
Especially after the
Julio's not
season.
Julio. I know it's hard for
Westbrook and
people to
Keita
see
had a
it.
good season. Yep.
but do you just give up on Julio after trading that pick for him?
You
Do you
gotta.
think they can do that?
I think next year's going to be a horrible year for him. He's an older guy now. I don't think he could put up. I don't think he can make it through a whole season. I really don't.
Yeah, definitely think you gotta watch his snaps, for sure there. But let's move on to our last player here. A guy who some people think will go to a team and be the wide receiver 1 on that team,
Woo.
Mike Williams, who could leave the Chargers. He could resign. To me, I think he kind of wants to get away from Keenan Allen. He wants to be that number 1 wide receiver. A team that just lost their number 1 wide receiver that, I don't think Mike Williams is a top 20 wide receiver in the NFL. So I think he's got to go to a team that's trying to make some statements here. And I think the Cleveland Browns make a lot of sense for Mike Williams. They have the cap space. They just traded away Odell with all that drama. They need to bring someone to line up opposite Jarvis Landry. I think Mike Williams could come in and be the wide receiver 1 for the Browns because I think that's what he wants. I don't absolutely love this for fantasy. I kind of hate it. For his value, for Jarvis's value, maybe it helps Baker's value, but what value does Baker have at this point? But to me, it makes the most football sense because I don't think he wants to go be the number 2 wide receiver for a team anymore. And I don't think a super smart team is going to give him a lot of money to come be their wide receiver 1. So,
and that's why I say JETS, Jets.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yep.
Absolutely killing everyone else's value in New York other than Zach Wilson's.
Yeah, he joined Corey Davis, Mike Williams, Corey Davis, like kind of the same person.
Pretty much. They are the same person.
Right? The way they came out with the draft and they went up to like a slow start and they were overhyped. And but Mike Williams, man, he was actually so good in the first 5 games.
Yeah.
And
Always
then,
is.
But those 5 games were so good that if you look at end of season rankings, you're going to be fooled by the stats because the consistency is not there. The catch rate is certainly not there. The yards per reception is top 5 amongst receivers with 100 targets, I believe. But it's he goes to any other place where he has to be the number 1 focal point, which not too many teams are really in that position right now. I don't know. I don't think he returns the value that people are going to, like I said, they're going to look at last season and just take those stats and run with it. But when you have a guy like Herbert who can just absolutely rocket launch the ball into outer space, it creates just the same thing we talked about earlier about Chris Godwin not playing with Brady anymore. You have the same effect going on with Mike Williams now. And if he's just looking to cash out and goes to a team that is not really, high powered, it could be, you said Browns, right?
Yeah.
That would be terrible for his value.
No, it would be terrible.
That would be it would be terrible all the way around. You know,
Yeah.
and
It
Baker
wouldn't.
would just get more commercials out of it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, it would be terrible for fantasy. Just football wise, I think the Browns are a team that would shell out a lot of money for an average type wide receiver when you're looking at that position. So it makes sense. I don't think there's a situation where I find Mike Williams on too many of my fantasy football teams next year, no matter where he goes. As Zach said, you're going to look at his stats from last year and be like, oh, he had a really good season last year. I want him. He's going to be overhyped going into the draft. And I'm be like, nope. Even if he stays in LA, he's going to be overhyped because he got Justin Herbert.
The only team you could say maybe his value would go up would be like the Packers. Because Aaron Rodgers is going to get him the ball.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to put up decent numbers, but he ain't going to the Packers. So
even if you went to the Packers, he still wouldn't be on my team because everyone would be taking him in the second round, second or third round.
Right about that. That'll be the sleeper pick.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, take Mike Williams, bro. He's going to win you your league. Take him in the second round, and then everyone takes him in the second round and regrets it. But, yeah, that's probably, where he upgrades his value. But
I think in standard leagues, though, he should be valued a little bit more than in PPR because if you look back, I think his touchdowns are generally hovering around double digits. If I'm not mistaken, maybe a few years ago he had 10. He had 9 last year. So the jump ball ability is there. So that's his saving grace, So maybe he has a down season production wise, but maybe he's just a red zone threat, for
so he had no touchdowns his first year because he was hurt. Didn't play much, and then he had 10, 2, 5, and 9. So he's just been inconsistent throughout his career. That's what worries me. He is 27, so he's not old by any means, but he's not super young. If you
he did go to Clemson, so maybe Jacksonville will overpay for him.
I wouldn't be surprised. To me, if Jacksonville would be dumb not to bring back DJ Chark, but Jacksonville's dumb, so maybe they don't bring back DJ Chark and they go spend big money on someone else like Mike Williams and regret it. No, Allen Robinson would. I don't think he wants to go back to Jacksonville.
The last time he was good.
I think he learned his lesson though. Blake Bortles was not it, so I don't think that ownership's quite right for Allen Robinson. He's too good of a player to be stuck on such a terrible team for any longer. But yeah, that was our prediction show. I want to thank you guys for joining. I want to thank everyone for watching. We're going to be getting into some way too early top 10s in the upcoming weeks, heading into free agency. So make sure you guys come back, check in again next week. We'll be doing that, starting with quarterbacks and running through. So you're definitely not going to want to miss those episodes. But thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you check me out on Instagram, Pro Football Craze, and check media out on Instagram as well. And then you can check Zach out at Ocean State. All the things have been running down below, so make sure you go back and check out the @ so you can get in touch with us. Send us your fantasy questions. If you play Dynasty, want some advice on a trade, let us know. I just pulled off a nice 3-team trade in a Dynasty league, rebuilding. That was an absolutely insane trade. Took us 3 days to work out. But
the first ever 3-way trade in Dynasty I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it was massive trade. So definitely, if you want some trade advice, hit up Zach or I. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the show.
Thanks, Zach.
Yes, sir.